Yeah. I mean, church is the only reason I feel like I can get up and do stuff in front of people. Because, like, I do have stage fright. But we're so used to, because I've done it so often now, I'm like, okay, you just have to go up in front of all these people. Cool. Like, church is really cool for that.
People overlook church because of other things. But I think at the foundation, church is like just great for development, period.
Absolutely.
Development, networking, community, like all this stuff.
Assuming you're in a healthy church.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's a big caveat, though.
But that's what I mean. At the foundation of what it is, not the other stuff that comes with it.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say, I know what you mean, but I actually might disagree. I think it's helpful in any way in terms of actually getting you to practice doing those things. What you receive from it or how you're poured into is a whole other story. Or you're like how it becomes afterwards. Like it might start to feel like a lot of pressure, things like that. That's the state of the church. But either way, there's that skill. No matter what, how do I phrase this?
That's
no matter
true,
what the church
Paul's letters
is
were like,
yeah,
that is the purpose of them.
Yeah.
So you mean like you developed the skill
just being in that environment,
maybe possibly because of like unfortunate or like not the healthiest of circumstances, but like you still learned the skill itself.
Yeah,
which is like
the
transferable to like outside of church settings.
Exactly. Whether it really, took root in you and was a healthy, growing, cultivating and purposeful experience, that depends on the health of the church. But like you could go to church as a kid and just learn to become a good public speaker, even if the church was toxic. You're still going to learn because they're still going to throw you up there and make you do stuff. You know what I mean?
How sad is that, though?
I think the idea that an unhealthy church is whatever, it's kind of like an arrogant and selfish view of church.
What do you mean?
Because isn't the purpose of church to like learn to be with all these different kinds of people? Now, in terms of like the pastor having an affair, I feel like that's the outlying, right? But let's say your pastor is good, but then you just have people in your church who are a little toxic.
And I mean, that's inevitable.
Learning how to navigate be around these people, regardless of whatever, I think that's part of it.
Can you explain what you mean again? Because I don't think I'm fully following you.
I think that apart from extreme circumstances, extreme being your pastor is having an affair, is stealing money from whatever, right? Because he's the leader. He's the head, right?
I mean, he's not, but anyway.
Well, he is the shepherd of that specific flock.
He may be a leader, but he's not the head.
He is of that body. He is. Not the body of Christ. That's Jesus, but like of that body, he's leading them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, I can see it in your face. You're like,
Okay, yeah, continue.
I think apart from that, I think church hurt and then leaving because of that, to an extent, is rooted in selfishness. Full take.
Those are fighting words right there.
Why?
What do you mean? You don't know me? You're saying why as if you don't know my story?
The mics are on. Go.
Okay, why do you think that?
Because it makes it about me and how I feel about things. Versus, regardless of who upsets me or hurts me, I'm still here to serve and be a part of this community. Through the BS.
I understand what you're saying. But I think that a pastor, let's say, could have a good heart and could have the best of intentions and be doing the best that he possibly can. However, the health of the church could still be like in the trash. And I don't think that then means that like you have to just stay and like put up with that and be in a really unhealthy, toxic environment because you feel like you just like have to stay because it's like the right thing to do.
Describe what unhealthy is to you. Because I feel like when you talk about unhealthy, you're talking about the extremes.
Well, people are imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
People make mistakes. And so therefore, anywhere you are, it's going to be an imperfect environment because there's people there.
Mm-hmm.
And that counts for churches as well. There is no such thing as a perfect church because there's no such thing as perfect people. So I'm not talking about a church where like, you know, everybody is genuinely, you know, trying their best and has good intentions and has a good heart, but there happens to be imperfections and mistakes made. Like, I'm not talking about that. Because then in that case, yes, I would agree with you. You can't just leave because it's not, or feel justified in leaving because it's an imperfect environment because you yourself are contributing to that imperfect environment.
I'm asking, what do you mean? Not what don't you mean?
Like a space where like people's priorities are really messed up and backwards, and then that impacts the way that they approach people and the way that they teach things, or the way that they, you know, speak about like certain ideas or concepts, or the way that they help or don't help people, or the maybe terrible advice that's given, or whatever the case may be.
But like when you say people, so you're referring to the entire church.
Yeah, not just the one person who happens to be on stage speaking at the moment.
So realistically, which church do you think where the entire church is the way you're describing?
I think they 100% exist.
That wasn't my question.
I don't think I could like give you like a list of like top 10.
I know, but I said realistically, where, okay, let me rephrase the question for clarity.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Realistically, do you think that majority of the type of churches that you are describing exist, in the sense that the entire church is how you're describing it, and it's not a few people?
How you're describing it being the unhealthy piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you use terms like they, but right, as opposed to like when I've seen toxic churches, usually it's just a few people that are in positions they shouldn't be in positions of leadership. So it bleeds through.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like the actual full church,
mm-hmm.
I don't think it's everybody that's going to be toxic.
No, I don't necessarily think so either. I do agree with you in the sense that like I think things like that can end up happening because it like comes from the top down. So even if it's not like the lead pastor, let's say, you could have, you know, different people on the pastoral staff, or, you know, on the board, or whatever it happens to be, or, you know, people in whatever positions of leadership that there happen to be.
But do you not think that the leadership is affected by the head?
Yeah, but I don't think that means that whoever is at the head of leadership has control over what these people do. I think that you can be setting a good example, but not everyone's going to follow it. Am I not answering the question?
No, I just don't agree with your perspective on it.
Why?
Because I think if the head is doing what the head is supposed to do, everything else falls in line. And I think...
Do you think it's that easy though?
Yeah, I think because if the head is doing what they're supposed to do, it weeds out the people who are not. If you're leading a team properly and then somebody underneath you and I put that in quotes because I know that says right? But if somebody underneath you is not doing what they're supposed to do, they don't last long. I think chronically ill churches is because the head is chronically ill. I don't think it's the head is okay, but then someone else is affecting the entire church.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That doesn't.
I see what you're saying.
So that's why I say, take away the extreme, because I think if you go to a church and the pastor, the head, is not or is toxic, then okay, this is a red flag, right? But if there's toxic people, but the head is not, then I think that's. I think finding your gripes in those circumstances comes from a place of me. That's my take.
What are your thoughts?
I'm like pretty on point with EJ on this, I think. Because I agree that if the head, again, of that body, that organization, whatever it is, if they are on their P's and Q's and they are being mindful of what is happening and they're correcting people in love and they're saying, okay, like, let's work on this, yada, 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 those things are not going to fester. And so to the point of when it's time to leave or not leave, I do think that we have to anticipate serving our church, serving the Lord in that space with those people, knowing that we won't always be happy, knowing that things are going to go wrong, knowing that you're going to feel some type of way sometimes, but that ultimately we're not here for the people around us. We're serving them, but that's not what we're here for. I think the change and the shift happens when you are becoming chronically ill spiritually in that space to the point where you're unable to, like, your relationship with God, your own, is being affected. And then it might be time not to leave, but to pivot. And when I say leave, I mean, like, I wouldn't encourage somebody to just stop going if that's possible. I would say maybe start to look for somewhere else where you feel like you can still be rooted and still be planted and still be active, but that you're not having that experience that has been wearing you down so much.
But by that logic, what do you mean by saying that your own relationship with God is being affected? Because at the end of the day, isn't that a you choice?
I think that it is a you choice, but you have to be mindful of that.
So what do you mean?
So I think
because you said your reasoning for when it would be okay to leave and find somewhere else is when you feel like your own relationship with God personally is being affected.
Yes.
But if that's a choice that you make as to whether or not that happens or not, then how can you put that on anybody else and saying that they're creating an environment or a situation that is then affecting your relationship with God? So in that case, it's okay to leave.
I think I'm getting stuck on your word. It's your choice. Because a relationship, it's not like, okay, I'm choosing that our relationship is going to get bad now. Like, that's a symptom of what's happening, where you're realizing I'm really struggling to come to God with something, or I just feel lost. I feel burnt out. I'm not really talking to him. I've lost that intimacy with him. But that's not a choice. That would be a symptom of what's happening. And in some cases, you might be like, okay, that means I need to be more. What do you mean?
How is that a symptom of what's happening and not something that you have control over yourself?
I think that when people are, and I'm still not sure if I fully understand your question. I'm not going to lie. Maybe you should rephrase.
If you feel like something is happening, a situation like an ongoing situation at church, or like a culture that's been allowed at a church, right? That you're saying is affecting your own personal relationship with God. But it's your own personal relationship with God, right? So you have control, so to speak, over how that goes, how much, time and effort or whatever you invest in your own relationship with God. So if it's yours, it's personal like this, that doesn't necessarily have to do with the people around you, then how do you justify saying that this situation outwardly is affecting your own relationship with God so much to the point where it's okay to leave that church and find somewhere else to be connected? Did that make sense?
Yes. So I don't know. Somehow I'm still a little bit like, and maybe it's because I'm not thinking about it from the same context you are. But how would I phrase this? Because I'm not saying that you need to, first of all, I'm not saying that it's like directly, okay, because this specific thing happened with these specific people, now my relationship with God is impacted. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right? I'm saying that there are sometimes environments in which you're not blooming very well. And then that is your responsibility to determine, like, Lord, you and him need to talk it out. Am I staying here? Do you have somewhere else for me? And so I'm saying there's situations like in which it does make sense. He is calling you somewhere else. Like, that's what I'm saying. But I don't think that the second there's toxic things happening between people or whatever the situation might be, you immediately have to be like, okay, I'm out. Because at that point, it is still your choice and your responsibility. And like, that doesn't have to impact your relationship with God. But we're still human. And sometimes it will. Maybe it shouldn't, or we'd rather it not, but it's going to happen because we're human. And then at that point, our number one priority is like our relationship with God. And from that, the fruit of like serving and sanctification and all that type of stuff. So that's, I don't know if I really answered the question though.
So at what point, so where's the line then?
I don't think there's a general line. It's a reason we have a relationship with God, and mine is different than yours is different than EJ's is different. Like that line is going to be you seeking God and saying, you need to tell me what to do here. And he will. I think that's the only answer. Because your line is going to be very different than my line. No matter what.
The line of like, at what point do I like pack up and get out of here?
Exactly. But I think if everyone comes in with the energy, and I feel like this is kind of what EJ was saying, or at least what I agreed with of it. If we just came in with the energy of like, these things are happening, you know, I don't like it. There's these shady things happening, and not like petty things. It's still big things. But if everyone just up and left and was like, not doing this, I mean, we wouldn't get very far. Imagine if the early church did that, because they were having some drama. And if people had just packed it up and were like, this is toxic, this is not healthy for me, and left, or like paused their involvement in church, we would not be where we are with the gospel today. Like, we might not even be sitting here.